that far, okay, you got it? All right. The new people on the committee, this is the Obamacare, what are we calling it now? One Care, health insurance. And we have traditionally had tension between the individual market, which are individuals, and the small group, which is your small group, small employers. The push has been to keep the individual market because it's a small pool with people with some very high needs, to keep that affordable. As part of the COVID, the federal government put so many subsidies into the individual market that it made it more affordable for individuals. And if we separated the market, the small group saved, I think, $150 million. They saved a lot of money.
Not quite that much, but
yeah, wasn't that much. They saved a lot. Last year, we only did it for a year because the federal thing was only for a year. Last year, there was a lot of angst in this committee. We really didn't want to remerge the markets and put an added cost on small employers when they were just recovering and inflation was just starting to hit. And we took a chance that the feds would extend it. They kept saying they would. It was in the Recovery Act that finally went through in August, I think. So they did extend them, and they extended them for 5 years. But we asked for a bill, 3. Okay. Maybe all told it's 5 because we've done 1, we're in 1. Okay, so we've got 3 more. So Emily, I know, Addie, Emily, have you got a plan here for report to us?
We do.
Okay, floor's yours, or the screen.
Great. So I think we'll both introduce ourselves and then we have a plan to kind of go back and forth to describe the report and recommendations. But for the record, I'm Addie Strumlow, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Vermont Health Access.
And my name is Emily Brown. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Financial Regulation.
Great. And Madam Chair, I think you gave a really excellent summary of what we're here to discuss today, but we're going to present the merged market report and a joint recommendation to keep the individual and small group markets unmerged or separate through 2025. This came from a working group that Emily and I facilitated last summer, which was directed by Act 137 from last session. And our plan is for Emily to provide background on the kind of market structure concept, merged, unmerged. Then I'll talk about how that relates to affordability and the subsidies that you just mentioned. And we'll describe the working group and kind of how we landed on this recommendation.
Great, thank you, Addie. Historically in Vermont, upon the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, Vermont made a policy decision to have a merged market. And for those of you who may need a little bit more detail around that, what that means is that the individuals who are enrolled in qualified health plans, their rates are merged with the rates of businesses, small businesses, which are purchasing qualified health plans. And the reason this policy decision was made is really to the rule of large numbers. When you have a larger risk pool, you're spreading the risk across that pool. And so while this can mean increased rates for the, historically the small businesses enrolled in qualified health plans, it can also lead to greater stability because the larger the pool, if you have individuals leaving or individuals with higher health costs, those are essentially spread out over a larger group of individuals, which can lead to more stability year over year. But what it also did is it increased premiums or required the small groups who historically have a lower risk profile, meaning their claims are usually lower, to pay higher rates. The legislature does have the authority to make changes to the market structure in Vermont, and that's, again, as was mentioned, happened in 2021, which was implemented for plan year 2022. But there's also a federal component of the process, which requires the state, once that decision has made to change the market structure, to approach the federal government and provide an actuarial justification for why it's making the change, and as well as requires approval from the federal government whenever there's a market structure change. So when we made this change a few years ago, the Department of Financial Regulation put together a proposal for CMS, and that was approved. And now I'm going to turn over to Addie to talk about the role of subsidies.
Great. So as has been mentioned, the decision was made to separate the markets for plan year 2022. This was via Act 25 back in 2021. And I think the rationale for doing that at the time was to leverage the expanded federal subsidies that were made available under the American Rescue Plan Act. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about how that relationship works. So as Emily discussed, market structure can impact premium rates. So what people are paying for the health insurance coverage. Unmerging or separating the markets in 2022 would result in lower small employer rates than they otherwise would have been in a merged market, and conversely higher individual rates for 2022 than they would have been in a merged market. But the other thing that's connected to rates are the federal subsidies. And this gets a little bit technical, but essentially subsidies, federal subsidies are tied to a certain benchmark plan, specifically the second lowest cost silver plan available to people in the individual market. So the more subsidies, the higher the premium for that particular benchmark plan, the more subsidies that are available to eligible Vermonters. So therefore, the decision to unmerge the market was predicated on the fact that any rate increase for subsidized enrollees would be largely offset by the additional subsidies. And it was a way to kind of maximize these federal dollars flowing into Vermonters. So that was what happened for 2022. And the big catch, as you described earlier, is that those expanded subsidies were only available through 2022. And when we spoke about this topic last session, there was just an enormous amount of uncertainty about what would happen with the subsidies for 2023. And that's what led to this provision in Act 137, directing us to convene a group to essentially decide what to do about future years. It added one additional year of separating the markets. So we are currently in a separated market structure for 2023. But then the working group was tasked with making recommendations about what to do for future years.
So last summer, DFR with DEVA got together a working group of stakeholders in response to Act 137, and 3 meetings were held. There is more detail about the working sessions and what was discussed in the report. But essentially, the group discussed ways to address Vermont's insurance market structure that would have reduced premiums in the small group market without increasing premiums in the individual market. And as Addie mentioned, between the first and second meeting, the news came out that there would be an extension of the ARPA subsidies into 2025. So at that point, I think there was definitely consensus of the working group members that there should be a focus on a recommendation to extend the unmerged market until the expiration of the subsidies. So essentially an extension of what is the status quo right now. And the conversation moved away from really the discussions around the ideas for how to address the affordability for the small businesses.
Yeah, so we were essentially, the group was a little bit let off the hook by the fact that the Inflation Reduction Act passed in the middle of our work, and it was just very clear that this mechanism to address affordability, the profound impact of these expanded subsidies, was what we wanted to leverage, and one way to do that is to keep the markets separate. Obvious, so the expanded subsidies are extended through 2025, so there is this cliff kind of looming in the future for 2026. And there will certainly be more to discuss about different strategies as we get closer to that time. We think as early as next session, it makes sense to talk about alternatives, but we want to see if there's any clarity about a potential additional extension or the duration of these subsidies beyond that. So for right now, we are here to recommend that you all act to pass legislation that would keep the markets separate for plan years 2024 and 2025. And part of this report includes draft language for your consideration to that end.
Any questions?
So new, I just want to understand and maybe clarify what's happening here. We are adapting state policy temporarily in reaction to an extension of a federal plan in order to maximize subsidies, keeping markets separate. Had the IIJA not been passed, we probably would have more likely been looking at merging these markets, but that is not being considered right now.
Yeah, I think one potential recommendation, or not recommendation, but one idea that was discussed in the stakeholder group was remerging, but I think there were other options too that were floated and that have been considered in the past. And there are links and more information in this study, but there are other solutions that were brought up and raised, such as reinsurance or other, they're called 1332 waivers, which allow states additional flexibility to address affordability issues in the market, which might not necessarily involve remerging the markets. And Addie, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, but I think that was a good summary of where we are.
This is the report. I've asked, and I assume DFR sent over a merged market bill. So we will have a bill extending the deadline from just this year. And at that point, we can get into more detail about.
Yeah.
This has been extremely painful. The federal government, we used to have association plans. Everybody joined the chamber, and there were one or two others, and they all formed a large pool. Affordable health care bill did away with associations. The Trump administration put them back in. That had impacts on this market. We were really struggling because it's painful to tell a small business that they were going to have to pay significantly more. And then the administration backed off and said, no, you can't do association plans. So this has been a roller coaster. It's painful for us, and it's painful for the people out there paying it because they don't have any real surety. And we're trying to keep the cost of healthcare as reasonable for as many people as we possibly can. So when that bill comes over, we'll have a chance to delve deeper, and I'm sure the two members of the audience will be there.
Yeah,
Okay, coming in, I think, next week. Yeah, just to give us an update of things from where you sit. Okay, Emily.
Madam Chair, I wanted to, maybe this is a question. We had considered including it in our department bill, but
That's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to check in on that, if that would be an appropriate way to bring it before the committee.
I think it could go under the heading of housekeeping.
Okay.
If we don't like it, we can break it out.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're coming in next week or the week after to go. I'm still waiting for that to come out of drafting.
Okay.
might take several weeks to draft something. I assume you sent over in draft form. I don't know, but I think they're just very backed up. And as soon as it comes out, we're waiting for a bill in here, so we will take it up and get it on its way. Yeah. Okay, any other questions at this point? All right. You have a break until 2:15. No, we have a break until 2:30. Oh, we gotta get some bills in here. Well, we will have the Department of Public Service in just to give us an update of what they've been up to since we left. And then at 3:30, we're gonna get a common level of appraisal overview. I know there's a lot of concern out in the communities about the rising house costs, and your housing cost was, if you were income protected, your house was under the limit last year. Well, it may be significantly over the limit this year, but your income hasn't increased, and some concern about, do we move any of those levers? See where that goes. Okay, I'm gonna just say.
I don't know if we've got Ms. Brown pinned down on the screen. She's
Okay.
going someplace else or not.
Oh, yeah, we are, have you got a question? Good, okay.
Before you go, Ms. Brown, and on the previous topic, I become very reliant on the committee webpage. If you have any materials or report for a new senator to finance to look over on this topic, just to solidify my understanding, I'd welcome them.
Yeah, we had actually talked about that earlier, and I think we'd be happy to Addie, I'd kind of rely on you if there's any firm documents we have right now, but I think we'd also be happy to come in and discuss the topic more. It's can be pretty complex, but I don't know if there are any documents that Diva would have.
I think we have a lot of the slides are incorporated in the report, but we could probably pull them out as a separate supporting material if that would be helpful as well.
Okay, or the report is posted, the report is posted if it's been let out, we got something from, Mike Farron, saying that there's a site where all legislative reports are up there. So if you do merge market report, you'll probably get more than one. And then I don't know if we can access last year's, because there's been a lot of documentation go through, but I'm not sure how much access you have to last year's committee webpage or when they take it down. But we see it's in the computer somewhere. And we can't find it. I'm sure Mike or Shadi or somebody can help you find it. Okay.
I'm looking up a bill from last year. When I went to the committee page, just by changing that date, I got everything that was there last May.
Okay, and we were doing that like last May, I think, because we were pushing it right down to the.
Understandable. Just any updated material where you focus my attention or lens on maybe I'm too reliant on the committee webpage, but that's right for all material.
That's usually where current material is. But unless we're getting, the report's out, if you send that over, we'll post the report. And it's probably out there somewhere else because it's been issued. Okay, so you're out until 2:30. We'll see the usual suspects next week. And we'll see where it goes. Okay. I don't know what is with this committee. Nobody ever wants to leave.
Because we like it here.
There's snacks.
And we like you, man.
It's worse out there. It's very dominant.
What?
It's very dominant in the Zoom. So it's like.
No.
That money is
on top of
because
approval.
there are
On the other side,
expenses applying for an Act 250 for that.
painting.
So this is,
I think
and this is
I was always trying to get-
hopefully a lot of this.
I tried that, I got away with it for a while in health and welfare.
Finally, just